Hi, I'm Melissa Bunch.
And I am Paul Bunch.
Welcome to the Spirit Code. And thank you so much once again for being here with us today. This is day 4 of our 5-part marriage class to reboot and give your marriage the much needed connection and togetherness that you have been searching for. All right, so I'm so excited about every single day's topic. Today's topic is about how our relationship positively influences our children, especially with being children of divorce. So we both have a little bit of a different experience in this matter.
Not just a little, actually a huge difference.
A huge difference in this matter. So I want to just kind of explain to you why we want to talk about this today. You know, the pattern is you get married, you have kids, and we give everything to our children. And we want to give them the best possible life. We want to put them first. We want to make sure that they know that they're special, that they're important, and help them to really have everything that we didn't have and to create these amazing patterns in their lives so that they can become productive adults of the community. And most of the time, the marriage will fall apart. And we've seen time and time again with our clients, whether they're our coaching clients or energy healing clients, that the patterns are typically the same, where we either have a differing of opinions on parenting, and that drives a huge wedge in between us, or we have kind of like we put our whole being into just taking care of the children, and we neglect the marriage completely. So we really want to kind of talk about how, once again, some of the patterns that we had previously when we were younger and different patterns that we have created over time, especially since we've been through the most difficult, most challenging parts of marriage, and how we have been able to correct these patterns and how we've been able to create new ones. And when you get remarried after divorce, so many people, they kind of think it's like this fresh, clean start, right? I've heard that time and time again. Well, it's easy for you because you have a fresh start. This isn't the person that you've had all these negative patterns with. And I would like to say, that is really a funny statement because that is so not true. Now we have such a bigger problem because now we have all this baggage and we have all of these toxic patterns, and we're trying to somehow or another bring children that have multiple sets of parents now who have quite a bit of baggage themselves, and our personal relationship and the patterns that we have created, especially that once the relationship falls apart, trust and understanding and commitment and love and vulnerability, like all of this has lost its shape and has lost its understanding of how to really create that oneness and that true connection. Because, you know, how do you trust somebody after something really destructive has happened in your relationship? And how do you create these patterns with two very wounded individuals who have really struggled in these compartments already? And a lot of times we presume that the other person means something that they don't because that's how your ex-spouse used to treat things. So you kind of have like this whole new plethora of problems that complicates the situation even more. And so if you've ever been, divorced and remarried, you'll understand exactly what I'm talking about. Just to kind of help you to recognize that we're all on the same playing field here. We are all working on the same pattern of healing and these same ultimate goals of truly finding happiness and creating happiness in our relationships and our family life. And that's why these are so critical. And I know that it's a whole hour that we're going to be talking today. And some of the points that we are going to be talking about today are going to be the way that Paul's personality influences my children and assists them in kind of reconstructing their understanding about families. How my kids treat me now based upon his example. How my kids see how a marriage can look for their own futures, how to treat others and how they deserve to be treated. Some of the other topics we would like to talk about today are kind of how they are able to just see through our example, how to create a healthy dynamic and a healthy relationship. Some of the positive changes we've just seen in their own personalities through that stability that we've created. And then some of the things that, like one of the patterns I would like to kind of share that my children have started that they've kind of picked up on, like specific patterns that they picked up on. And then my favorite one is the love fight, how we have love fights. And so I know an hour can be a long time to dedicate to this, but I just want to remind you that it is free. This hour is free, and that we are offering this to you as a bonus to some of the programs that we do offer. And if you'd like to learn more about us at spiritcode.net, please look us up and learn more about what we offer. But we just have found that this is just so critical that we share some of these keynotes, because almost everybody that we work with, this is one of the underlying issues. And to really be able to move forward to create new results in your life, we need to heal not just our own internal selves and our own outlooks, but the dynamic that we have at home. So if your home dynamic is not healthy, if your home dynamic is injured and wounded, and you're in this state of high conflict, high contention at home, then no matter how much that you're working on your personal development, you're going to constantly be hitting your head against a wall. You're not going to be able to make the progress you need to make. So this is like a full healing, as we're doing our own internal healing and our healing with our relationships, and helping you to make your family, your home, a safe space.
So let me say a few
do.
things. So this is actually a really challenging subject to tackle.
Yes.
Because a lot of people probably don't even want to consider thinking about it in the first place, like these topics that we're going to discuss, and that's because they can really hit home pretty deep.
Yeah, there's a lot of defensiveness that we have heard whenever we try to address this, that people just don't really want to be told how to handle this aspect, and how let me just let you finish your sentence.
So with that, what I was going to say is that sometimes we need to look at how our relationship is with our children. And we want to always look and point the finger to somebody else, say this is happening because of, whoever it might be, possibly the ex. And whether or not that's true, you can work on changing that. And so we're going to discuss some things that you can do to identify some healthy patterns to establish, so that that relationship can be strengthened with your children.
Yeah. So I really have to say that it starts with your relationship with God. So when you work on your relationship with God, and a lot of times, like we just kind of in general, when something really cruddy happens in your life, it tends to be a blame to God, that God let this happen. That obviously, God is upset, or I did something wrong. Like we hear that a lot, that there is a lot of blame. And even if it is not conscious, it can still be something that is influencing you, where you might be separating yourself from the love of God, or feeling deserving of God's love.
And we all want to think of ourselves as a great and wonderful parent that doesn't do anything wrong, and that our children just automatically love us because we are the perfect parent. But that's not necessarily the case.
But then we hold our parents to these high standards that they can't make mistakes. And like, how dare you do X, Y, and Z that you did to me? Because you're my parent, you're my mother, you're my father.
You should know better.
You should know better. But then we turn around and we have our own patterns that we expect our kids to be able to deal with. And really, we're the same. If we're going to hold our parents to these high standards, then our children should also be in that same space where they are also capable of holding us accountable for our patterns. And that's where I kind of want to talk about the higher is Heavenly Father. So Heavenly Father and Heavenly Mother have the same, where they are teaching us how to truly create how to create our homes. And the more that we kind of look to them, and that's why that relationship is so critical. then we want to look to them for that teaching, because we're very mortal. We have a lot of patterns that we need to correct. We have a lot of things that have occurred to us in our lives that carry over into our parenting, that carry over into our marriage. And so being able to really watch the things that they have done, the way that they have taught us, and a lot of times we want to put our kids in a bubble so that they never get hurt, they never get wounded, they never experience anything hard. And if we look at the way that Heavenly Father has done it with us, we're learning through experience. And He wants to teach us how to fly. He's not going to hold us the whole time. He's, if we're learning how to ride a bike, Heavenly Father is not going to hold the bike and put you on His lap so that He does all the work and all the pedaling and all the balancing. He wants us to learn how to do it. And it does involve falling and getting back up. And that's one of the most important parts, is to get back up.
I'll give you an example of this. You might not like this term, but helicopter moms, yeah, I think you might know who you are.
Careful there, Ben.
I know. Okay, so that's kind of...
I'm a little bit of a helicopter mom myself.
Yeah, so I don't mean to offend you, but there's some things that maybe you could consider letting go of. I'll give you one example. So
to give the kids the opportunity to experience life.
Yeah, so
I see that.
I don't have my kids here with me, and when I went to visit my kids, I think it was a couple of years ago, when I remember this incident occurring. So they didn't do much cooking at all. And so I handed my daughter a knife, and she was, I think, maybe 10, 10 or 11. And I handed her, it was like a sharp knife, like maybe a steak knife. And she's like, "Whoa, what are you doing here?" I'm like, "What do you mean? It's a steak knife. Just hold the knife and
cut whatever that she was supposed to cut."
And she couldn't believe I was handing her a knife. Like, it was so dangerous. And then,
did she cut her own food at that point?
No.
Okay. I can see what you're kind of trying to hint at.
Yeah.
As to how complicated that we're not giving them the opportunity to develop those skills.
And so then, also, like within the same time, I was hoping to get her to cook a little. So I showed her how to turn the oven on, and I think it was like something like chicken nuggets or something. And so I had her...
Very easy to make.
Yeah, put it on the pan, and then she wouldn't put it in the oven. I'm like, I had to coach her for like maybe 10 to 15 minutes that she's not going to get burned and how to do it safely, because she was very scared about putting a pan in the oven.
So if we carry that over, do you mind if I kind of show how we carry that over?
Yeah.
So when she's growing up, something that would be complicated is to be able to really be on her own in this matter. That if we are putting them in this bubble to the point where they're not capable of being able to take care of themselves, then, and I have to say that if I'm going to bring it back to the marital relationship, that it is going to put a lot of strain on the marital relationship, because there's going to be two different parents with two different mindsets. So we got the mom in this mindset where she wants to either, protect the child, or she wants to make sure that things are done a certain way, or she wants to,
I also feel like she's being responsible and taking care of them in a manner that is...
Right, making sure that she's keeping them safe. Like, there's a bunch of different angles that she's thinking right now, but in your mind, you're looking at it long term, that they need to be able to learn how to take care of themselves, that, you don't need to cut their steak when they're 10, 11, 12, and that should be something that they're learning around that age. My 7-year-old, we're still cutting his steak, but at the same time, there is a certain age that needs to shift over, but it has everything to do with their maturity level too.
Yeah. And my daughter's quite mature.
She's very mature.
Very intelligent, picks up things really quick. So I kind of, honestly, I expected that to have been something that she would have known by now. So really what we're going to be kind of explaining, we're going to be talking a little bit more about our marital influence on my children,
just because we can still talk about your kids. I'm not criticizing.
Yeah.
But since his kids are out of state, we don't get to have a lot of parenting time with them. It's more shorter visiting time. We don't have, the full family experience that we have when my kids are here. Did you have anything else you wanted to address on that before we move on to the next topic?
No, actually, let's continue. Let's move on.
Okay, great. So something that I've kind of experienced in the past is that, when we get pregnant, we have babies and we're taking care of all of their needs and we're keeping them alive and we're feeding them and changing their diapers. Like it's exhausting. We go to bed so tired, sometimes so stressed out, especially when they're at that age that it's, and they're pointing and you're all over the place. And when you try and sit down with them, they throw themselves back and they start crying and you're just like, oh, please, please. I have to be able to put you down. And as much as I love holding you, I have to be able to rest my body too. And be able to like juggle all the responsibilities at home. And so what happens is as soon as the spouse comes home, we're exhausted, we want a break. Or as soon as it's time for bed, we pass out. Like we're just too tired. There's nothing else to give. So how can we make some patterns shift where the marriage comes first? And I've had a lot of people who disagree with this because they believe that the kids need to come first and then the marriage. And is it in the scriptures or is it just in the proclamation of the family? One of them talk about the marriage being like the center or being like the, anyhow, I'm kind of like thinking the foundation. I couldn't get that word, the foundation of the family. But anyhow, he's not jumping, so I'm assuming.
I think it's maybe just in the family.
In the family proclamation to the world. So if you haven't read that, there's a proclamation to the world that you could probably Google and have an opportunity to look over. And so really, I had the hardest time kind of being okay with that because my marriage wasn't being put in the center of our family in my previous experiences. And in my second experience in marriage, it was really kind of complicated because his kids kind of ran the show. And so when his kids ran the show, dinner time was like a 2 to 3 hour event of temper tantrums. And it was really difficult for me to be okay with, because there were so many other things that needed to be taken care of and my kids weren't receiving the attention because we were still trying to deal with the tantrum of one of the other children. And so that juggling act it doubled the amount of work, because when you do come into a relationship after divorce where you've got two sets of kids, we have a whole different dynamic where there is a favoring, as hard as it is to say, there is favoring towards your own children. And so something that we worked really hard on is creating a dynamic where the children feel very safe, very much at home, very welcome, and very loved. And that's something that we've been putting a lot of time and a lot of focus on. And it starts in our marriage. So if we were putting all of our focus on the kids, then the whole thing would still crumble. So it's like building a pyramid. And the marriage is the bottom part of that. Well, God is the bottom part, and then, of course, the marriage. Those are two very critical components on the bottom. And then the kids are going to be on the top. So something that I've kind of noticed with my children is that when I was in difficult relationships versus when I was alone, in a difficult relationship, my kids, I'm not going to go there. When I was alone, my kids were very protective of me when I was single. They didn't want me to get in a relationship because they wanted the world to be about them. They didn't want me to be distracted, and they didn't want anything bad to happen to me. So they were very, very protective of who I was going to let into my life. And so when we got married about 1.5 years ago, it was really amazing to see the shifts occur in their life, because there were definitely some patterns I was recognizing that my boys were not treating women right. they were getting in some very inappropriate fights with girls, and or not they, just one of them, and then the other one didn't really even know really how to handle that. And so, and I also noticed with my daughter that she also really struggled with what she deserved, where she didn't feel as though she deserved to be treated a certain way. And then they all kind of got into this place where marriage is a negative thing, and they really saw marriage to be like a very toxic part of family. And gosh, that's kind of heartbreaking, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
That your kids would actually get to that point where they don't want to have anything to do with relationships, because they're like, that is the biggest problem with the world is marriage. Don't ever do it. And that's something that we're still working on assisting one of the children with reprogramming and understanding that marriage is not the culprit. It has everything to do with our capability of being able to hold down a relationship. So I've noticed that their patterns went from that to now they are in this place where my sons are treating girls so much more respectfully.
I want to butt in real quick.
Thank you.
When I first came into the home here, I was not really well received, and I mean it was kind of casual. Like,
you were not well received at all.
And
there were so many sabotages to try and get Paul to leave. Like they were like, what can we do to make him turn around and walk back out so that we are just us and mom once again?
Yeah. And so it's been a slow, gradual process.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I bring this up, I bring it up because it's not going to be a quick fix. It takes a long-term effort and commitment to making a change on a regular basis. Yeah. And so look forward to some time in the future if you're struggling through these things, because it can change.
Right. And so that is something, watching, I believe it was like his first night or his second night that he was here. Before we got married, and not night, so it would be dinner time. He came over for dinner time each day, and so we had the missionaries from our church over, and the house was full, and my youngest one was still participating in some very unhealthy patterns and getting in a lot of trouble at school, getting in a lot of fights, and he was in kindergarten or preschool, and so I remember Paul was just like floored, because he was in the military. Like, he truly has this understanding that kids are more respectful to their parents.
I got that just from growing up, not necessarily from the military.
All right. Well, the military kind of assisted you in being respectful to authority. Maybe. And that was something that, like, I wanted to make sure, because he was in the military when we were dating. I mean, he was working with the military, and so a lot of our dating was long distance. And so we made sure that we had a decent amount of time where it was one-on-one before we got married, to make sure that we could handle the family dynamic portion of it. Because it's not just me, it's me and my children. And I remember how hard it was for him for the first few months, because of how difficult the kids were and how they were treating me so terribly. And he was like, is this normal? And I went, yeah, kind of is. And I had some friends that were pointing out, and they were constantly going, man, your kids are so mean to you. Why do you let them do that? And I'm going, I kind of overcompensate. I want this to be a safe space where they can fall apart, where they can express their feelings, where they can feel free to really tell me how they feel, and if they're angry, to be angry, and to learn how to handle those emotions, because those emotions are a very real part of life. And so if they're upset, they need to learn how to work through those, as opposed to just being punished or disciplined for those emotions. And I found that it's so critical to help them to learn through the atonement, and to be able to, if they mess up and they fight with one another and they hurt one of their siblings, that they can be forgiven and they can have that made wiped clean. But they have to go through those steps of apologizing and really wanting to create change.
Yeah, let's actually discuss this a little bit more. So as an example, let's say one of the children's throwing a temper tantrum.
Mhm.
What's your first reaction?
Me?
Me.
You? Oh, that's a different one. My mom always told me that she would just sit down on the floor with us and she would just wait.
So
She's like, okay, I've got all day.
for me, if the kid's throwing a temper tantrum, it's like, okay, what can we do to stop this? We need to
How
stop
do we fix it? Right,
Yeah.
right.
And
That's not how
the
I look
easy
at it.
solution is, well, you either discipline them, take away their toys, take away their TV.
That's what we mean by discipline.
Yeah,
It would
take
be
away whatever it is.
turn off the
And
Xbox, turn off the television,
If you need to send them to their
take
room,
them to bed.
etc., basically use force. And sometimes this actually is necessary.
However, I
However,
disagree. In my opinion, if the kid is throwing a tantrum, I want to know why. I want to know what caused them to be so upset that they were throwing a fit, and then help them to resolve what caused that tantrum. And then the tantrum stops. Like it kind of seems to me to be more logical, because as opposed to just forcing them to behave a certain way, we're helping them to resolve the problem that started it from the beginning.
Right. Well, let me kind of add to this. So, yes, that is the best way to do it.
Thank you.
And so it does.
But that's still just my opinion.
Yeah.
Everybody has a different way to do it.
But sometimes it just goes too far. And when it goes too far, then you have to use some more force.
And it's been a long time since my kids have done that.
Yeah.
And I'm really impressed with how much our relationship has helped them to stop doing those things.
Yeah. And so Melissa, she was at what was that facility that you took Alex to?
It was at the YWCA, the domestic violence shelter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So there were some strict rules that were put into place that they had to practice. And that
was helping teach the children.
And if Alex didn't stick to those rules, there'd be like a little bit of a warning.
There was like a timeout round, basically.
And then it would be put in timeout. And
that really did help him to see I had a follow through, because I didn't have a whole lot of follow through. I just kind of let them walk all over me until like my boundaries were totally pushed.
And this was hard for Melissa at first.
Oh, I cried. I cried my eyes out whenever I had to put them in that timeout room.
But it did actually enforce some rules, some boundaries. It enforced the boundaries. Yeah. So when she said something, that it was actually respected.
And I think what was great about that program, it was the PCIT, Parent-Child Interactive Therapy, was to teach, to really help moms that have been in those situations, how to heal that relationship with their children in a very healthy manner. Because a lot of the children in those types of situations just tend to fall apart.
Yeah, there
was a lot of children in that we saw that were there, and they were all very. I don't want to give any name calls.
But let me just say they're hurting.
They're really acting out because they were hurting so much and confused.
Yeah, and that's the core issue there. So and
that's what it really is, that our children are suffering. If your relationship is suffering, your children are as well.
Yeah. So let me explain that. If a child's throwing a temper tantrum and they're hurting inside, and then you take away their toys, they're going to be more hurt, feeling more rejected. And
alone.
So the method that we established was to assist in offering them maybe a different idea to think about, or to present a lot more loving affection and assist in helping them to feel more comfortable. And so that they'll calm down and actually begin to talk to you.
Right.
And I'll tell you.
And that really did help. Like, that has totally changed the dynamic at our home.
Yeah. And I'll tell you how bad it was. So Alex, he likes to watch TV quite a bit, and he's a TV control hog. And he also likes it really loud. And so I remember when I was here.
And we don't like to have the television on.
Yeah. And so when I was here, I would ask him to turn the TV down, and he would absolutely ignore me or say no.
Or he would turn it up because he knew it would upset you.
And so if I basically took the remote control and turned it down, it would turn into a temper tantrum.
Yeah.
It was a mega temper tantrum just because I wanted the volume turned down. So I had to kind of sneak it in gradually, a little bit nicely.
Well, I actually kind of intervened and assisted in this quite a bit too, because I'm also teaching the children how to respect Paul. And so we really had to create this dynamic where I would also come in and I would reinforce what he has asked, because it is a very appropriate thing he has asked. It wasn't something that was crazy, ridiculous. It's not like he was saying, scrub the walls or something. He was just saying, turn the television down, please. And so I would come in and I would reinforce it. Alex, turn the TV down or turn the TV off. And because we did that parent-child interactive therapy, he started listening and respecting. But it really did take quite a long time of steady consistency in the home, in the family, and the marriage for these patterns to be recreated in his respect towards
So
us.
now we're at the point where the TV's not loud. And if you want to,
if you ask him to turn it down, he does.
Yeah.
He usually says fine, and then he turns it down. But he's also doesn't have it on all the time like he used to. Like he has significantly started interacting more with the family, and wanting to go on picnics, wanting to go to the park, wanting to go on walks, wanting to go to different activities I like to take the kids to. But can I change the topic just a little bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Go.
Something that I've also recognized is how we kind of, if we put the children in a position between the relationship between the parents, then we end up using the children. And that's something that we have to recognize, that this is not a matter of who's right, who's wrong, and putting the kids in the middle and constantly doing this tug of war, because the kids are the ones that suffer. And so this is something that we have focused a lot on in our dynamics with our exes and with each other, to make sure that if I disagree with Paul, I try really hard not to say that in front of the children. And I try not to say anything to the children that is contrary, so that we're on the same page. For instance, that if Paul had said, turn the television down, and I came and I whispered to him, that mean Paul, he's making you turn that TV down. I can't believe he's doing that to you. Oh, honey, you just do whatever you darn well please. And, just don't listen to him. Like, if I did that, then his understanding of the parental role, the male figure, the father figure, is going to be a very disrespectful view. He's going to think he never has to listen. He's going to disrespect other males, or he's not going to start listening to my rules. He's going to but what happens is that you think, oh, we're just buddies, right? Like me and my kid were just buddies, and it's okay. But it comes out in their behavior where they end up being hateful towards the other parent. And what that does is it hurts the kids so much. And as long as you're in a healthy space, you're going to be able to be okay no matter how your children, if they say something mean to you, you're going to be like, okay, well, I know it's not true. You're obviously upset about something, because I know what you just said about me is not true. So let's see how we can help you to feel better.
I'll give you another example with this. So like when one of the children were rather demanding and saying, give me this, or whatever it was, I would say, she's not going to get that until you ask nicely.
Yeah.
And
I agree with that.
And so it taught him that he needed to respect his mom.
Yeah.
And so after a while, gradually, it worked out.
Yeah, and I really do appreciate it whenever you jump in and you're like, please respect your mother.
Yeah. Staying consistent with that too.
Mm-hmm.
That was another long-term effort in getting this child to say please and thank you.
Right, and instead of bossing like I'm the maid. Yeah. And that really was a long-term. And the thing is like it kind of started like a snowball. It started out gradually where I was just doing everything for them. And then it turned into an expectation for the children. And then once the divorce occurred, there was a lot of, parental issues that played into the way that the children treated me. And in doing so, the kids were constantly upset, constantly with this inner turmoil, constantly upset. And it was interfering with school. It was interfering how they were getting along with other kids. It was interfering with their own self-worth. There was a lot of immature behavior and patterns that were happening. And a lot of that was beginning with one of the parents' behaviors towards their own internal feelings and issues. And so us as the parents, like, we really are leading these children. We really are teaching these children. So we want to kind of take a step back and say, let's focus on the marriage, because we're not ignoring the kids. Once I have gotten to a space where I have a very deep connection with Heavenly Father, and I have a very healed understanding of myself and who I am in my own past, then I'm coming at the marriage in a very safe space where I'm not needing anything from him. I'm able to offer, and he's able to offer, and then we are both able to receive. And so you're actually able to get your love tank filled in the appropriate manner, because it's already filled with your own self-love and your relationship with God.
Yeah, I want to kind of add another thing to this, another example. So one of the kids, whenever we would start to pray,
I forgot about this.
just
Oh
turn
my
around
goodness.
and say,
Nope. Every time.
It was horrible.
I know.
And
he would come in here and he would turn up the television or turn up the music as loud as humanly possible and scream, "Ah!"
yeah.
while we were praying, and we're going,
Okay, this same kid, based upon the example that we've
I'm
set,
getting hot now. I'm like, the house is getting heavy. I could feel the intensity of this energy. It was powerful.
This same kid, last night, he asked us, hey, well, okay, Melissa and I, we were on our bed, and he jumps up on there, and he's like,
just to say goodnight. We were just talking.
and he's like, you know what we should do? Every night, we should have everybody come on the bed and have a family prayer.
I know, it was so cool. Like, we were fully dressed, okay? We're fully dressed,
kid?
talking in our bed. It was like around 7 or 8 o'clock at night. We weren't even in our jammies or anything. And so we were praying just before we had today's birthday, and so we were having a little birthday celebration for him. And he wanted everybody to be quiet for the prayer. He was at the head of the table, and he folds his arms, big smile on his face, and I'm saying the prayer, and he leans over, pomegranates. And I'm like, Heavenly Father, thank you for pomegranates as a gift for Alex on his special day. And he's beaming. Like, I looked over at him and he's so happy. And I'm like, thank you for Alex, for this beautiful boy, and for that we get to celebrate his life today. And he's just so happy. And seriously, this child hated God and he hated Christ. Mm-hmm. He constantly, whenever I talked about Jesus, he'd be like, I hate Jesus. And he would say it was so much passion and so much hatred. And I'm like, whoa, where is this hatred towards God coming from? And like, we couldn't pray, we couldn't talk about God, we couldn't do family home evenings, we couldn't, going to church was just incredibly difficult. There was just so many different things. And here he was such a small child. He just turned 7, but during this time we're talking about when he was 5 and 6.
5 to 6.
Right. But this has been happening for me since I got divorced. So basically since he was 2. And man, the patterns were just so difficult to recreate with him, because it wasn't something that you disciplined. It was something that we had to start from scratch, and that there were sabotages coming from the other side at that point. So we had to work really hard on being a very stable, loving environment, that church was a safe space and God is a safe person, and that you can count on Heavenly Father and he loves you. And so that was just a really challenging aspect to our parenthood. And, when I kind of come back to our influence and how we got him to a space where he loves praying. Like, who'd have thunk he loves praying? And like going to church is easy. Getting him out the door and going to church has been actually very easy. And and it's not an age thing. I would love to say it's a maturity thing. It's not. Not in this situation. Maturity was making it harder.
It's a major change in the lifestyle that he's had.
Yes.
And that's all the things that we're teaching in our program.
In these classes. Yeah.
We're putting it into practice, and it is changing the kids' lives.
So we have a sabotage program, a self-sabotage program that we teach, and that's a 12-step one, and that's a part of our entire membership program, and it's very, very affordable because we believe that Christ heals everybody, not just the wealthy, and that he wants us to learn how to fish, not just to be fed by the fishermen. And so we put a lot of effort into making it very, very affordable. Like crazy affordable. When you look on the website, you'll be like, seriously? And it's not a matter of quality as to why it's affordable. It's because we want more people to have the opportunity, more people who typically cannot afford the help that they can afford the help in this program. And so he's right. We're putting it in practice in our own lives.
And it's not necessarily directly, with energy releases on the kids. That's not what it's all about. It's just living the principles within the program, and
because the kids
offering.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, offering them the respect that they deserve.
Right, and so what we realize, because I've had a lot of people say, well, why don't you just help your kids through this? Why don't you just do, work on them? And I'm like, well, here's the deal. There's living energy, so it's a lifestyle, it's a pattern, it's who you are, it's a thought process, and so we have to work on correcting that first. That's going to be like the long-term issue for them, and so that's where we've just been doing it by example. That has been the most beneficial because they're children. How do you really help a child who isn't really capable of communicating? And so our marriage has been the answer.
We don't sit down and give the kids lessons on this either.
Right. No. So our marriage is the answer. And it's been very, and a dog wants to say hello too.
Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Our marriage. So, okay. Thank you, Shadow. We love you too. Okay. So.
All right. Time to go. Come on, pal.
Okay. So when we really focused on healing ourselves in our marriage, it's really changed. So some of the examples is that whenever Paul is here, he has a very fun, lighthearted attitude. And I love that. I've really been able to release the expectations that I have for the family. I've been able to release any sort of control. When I had control, as I want things to look a certain way, I want things to go a certain way, I want the children to behave a certain way in public, right? I want them to look a certain way at church or wherever it is that we're going. I have actually kind of sabotaged our potential for a positive outcome, right? I know my shadow was jumping. Anyhow, I'm just kind of going through some different possibilities in my head while I'm talking, but it's a good thing. So we're listening, Shadow. Anyhow, talking to my dog. So anyhow, so the children, like with this stability that Paul is offering, I've been able to see that his attitude, the way that he behaves around the house, is now reflecting in the children. So when I would kind of control what I expected and kind of assume, oh my goodness, they need to look perfect at church, they need to be really nice, clean cut, and they need to sit still, and they need to look blah, 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 blah. I'm not open to the possibility of things changing, of them having a different perception or expectation for what something is going to look like. And so when Paul came along, I was able to get to this point in my own personal development work where I stopped expecting a specific outcome and just started enjoying life. And one of the things that we talk about is just enjoying the ride, right? Just let go and enjoy the ride. And so this is a little bit off topic, but I promise you this really will come round come back around. I have a story about the roller coasters, and I want to share that before we kind of get back. And the whole purpose is just to show how to enjoy parenthood, enjoy marriage. So I don't forget how I'm coming back around. Okay. So a lot of my mentors were teaching me in my programs to shift your perspective, to shift your self-talk, and that your experience is going to change. And I just thought, well, the outside circumstances, I can't control the outside circumstances, so how am I going to be able to change my experience if these circumstances are still causing all of this problem? And I can't change how the other person is behaving and how they're reacting and how they're treating others. So it's just a matter of, my self-talk. Like, how's that going to change anything? How's my perception going to change anything? So one of my mentors, because they knew that I was going to the roller coaster park with my daughter, and he said, okay, here's what you're going to do. I want you to change your self-talk and the way that you view the roller coasters and see what happens. And my previous experience with riding roller coasters is I would get that, feel like my stomach would go up into my throat. I would feel nauseated. I would get a headache. And I would get really tense, like when the roller coaster is going up, I start getting really anxious, really tense. And then as soon as it's about to go down, I hold on, every muscle in my body is tight. I'm like, ah! I'm like, no, right? Okay. So by the time I'm done, I'm sick. By the time the roller coaster is over, and I still go on another one, right? Because that's just what we do. And so I'm taking my daughter to the roller coaster park, and I'm just going, okay, but the roller coaster is not going to change. It's going to stay the same. If I just change my self-talk, how is that going to change my physical reaction in my body? That makes no sense, because the way that my body reacts has everything to do with the actual events. So I don't understand how my perception or my self-talk is going to change this. So I thought he was full of it. I didn't think it was going to work. And so I thought, okay, I'm in this program. I want to grow. I want to heal. I want to be able to help others. And I can't do that if I don't do the work. So I dedicated myself and committed myself to really doing this while we were there, because it was just a little bit more simple. It wasn't a relationship or a conversation that I was dealing with. We're talking a very basic, we're really not changing the outside circumstances. It is seriously just my internal work. So as I'm getting on the roller coaster, I'm thinking to myself, constant self-talk, constant perspective shifts. I chose to come here. I chose to put on sunblock. I chose to pay an arm and a leg to get in. I chose to wait in line for an hour, and I chose to be in this heat and get a sunburn. And I chose to get on this ride. I am totally in control here. I want it to go up and back down. I want it to go fast. I want it to go crazy. That's the whole point of being here. I wanted this. And so why in the world do I resist it the second that it happens? It's like relationships. You want a relationship and then you resist it the second that it happens. Or you're constantly sabotaging it the second that it happens. So I'm really focusing on my self-talk, and I'm I'm safe. I want to be here. Now, I practiced this with a child once. One of my friend's kids that we went on roller coasters with, because she also, and this was not too long ago, she also got really sick on roller coasters. So I said the same thing with her over and over. I'm safe. I love how this feels, and I want to be here. Or I'm safe, I want to be here. I love how this feels. And we said that over and over and over. And so it was the same idea, the thought process that I was going through when I went on the roller coaster. And so I go up, and when it comes down, I didn't squeeze super tight. I didn't get super tense. My stomach didn't go up. I actually really enjoyed it. And when it was over, I didn't have a headache. I didn't feel nauseated. And I'm going, whoa, dude, let's try that again. And so we went on another roller coaster, a little bit more extreme roller coaster, and I tried it out again, just constantly shifting my perspective that I was in control, I was safe. Or not necessarily in control, more I chose to be here. I'm not I'm not out of control, because that's kind of that fear on the roller coaster that you're totally out of control. So it's really just kind of letting go of that. Like, I choose to be here. Like, this is what I want it to do. It's going to do exactly what I want it to do. And I'm okay with that. And I choose this. And the same thing, like, it was okay. Here's the thing. I'm afraid of heights. I'm claustrophobic. I definitely get horrible headaches on these types of rides. And so anyhow, to kind of bring this back around again, we even did the slingshot, like a bungee jump. And same thing, I loved it. It was like a free fall from 100 feet. And I'm telling you, like, scared to death of heights. You might be saying to yourself, oh, no. Seriously, I was just challenging myself because I wanted to prove these people wrong that this wouldn't work, because I did not see how a perspective shift could change my situation and my personal life. It did not make sense, because I could not change what the other person was doing, and I could not change how that was influencing me. And so learning how to change my internal world totally changed my experience. And that's when I learned how to just enjoy the ride. And that this life is not about control. Like, if I choose to have this body, I choose to be in this house, I choose to be in this state, I choose to have children, I choose to be a mother, I choose to be married, I choose all of this, I am totally in the place that I have created for myself. So I'm not saying that I created this earth. I'm not saying I built this house. I'm saying I created this lifestyle that I'm currently in right now. And so many times we feel that we're victims to our lifestyle. Like, I'm a victim to my job. I'm a victim to where I am. Like, everything's falling apart. I'm so unhappy. But every choice you have made in the past has led you to where you are. And sometimes that hurts to understand, because choice and accountability, if your spouse left you, or your spouse did something really hurtful to you, or whatever, it's very difficult to see the fact that you're still there. Like, the choices that you made still have you in the place where you are. So if you chose to leave them, then that was a choice you made. If you chose to stay, that is a choice you made. Like, you can't change the outside circumstances. You cannot control the other person. However, you can change how you respond, how you feel about it, how you react, because of your internal perspective and the way that you talk to yourself. So if everything you say is, gosh, this stings, he's so mean, he's such a horrible person, it's going to change how you treat the other person. And so the purpose of this is just to say, letting go of that control in the relationship has totally shifted this parenting dynamic that we have, so that it is a complete safe space to just experience whatever happens. Like, if everything falls apart one day, it's okay. Next, what do we do next? As opposed to resisting that change, constantly being upset at the new challenge or the new trial that has come our way, or being upset about how he reacted or how one of the children behaved. Instead, it's, okay, how do we handle that? You know, somebody has a new need, somebody has a new issue that's going on. Let's go deal with that and move on. Like, it's okay. Not a big deal. Okay?
It's easy.
Oh no, it's not easy. It's not easy. But that perspective shift takes you from a place of being totally frustrated and angry and controlling or miserable and depressed and sad and lonely to a place of happy and being able to deal with the things that come at you. It's kind of like stumbling and falling, but getting back up. And so what we've noticed that the children have carried this over. And that these different patterns that we are showing them, that they are in this safe space. They have really been able to open up. They've been able to lighten their understanding, like the intensity that each of them were creating in their life has calmed down, and it has mellowed out, and it has stabilized. Simply with some of these shifts that we're sharing with you. And like my 6-year-old well, 7-year-old, my youngest one, he stopped hitting, he stopped swearing. Like, there's more to it, okay? There's definitely a little bit more to it, but without giving you anything that is personal or anything that is confidential to the other party involved. I'm just going to say that I know that our our relationship has influenced him for the better also, so that he could really start to reflect the way that Paul behaves in the home. And so I recognize that he's in a very healthy space, and that my daughter has stopped a lot of very unhealthy patterns, and my middle child has started behaving a lot more mature. And so, like I said, there is one other outside portion of this that has influenced these behaviors. But anyhow, just to kind of share with you that by putting our own healing journey, and then our marriage healing journey, and then our parenting in that order has totally reconstructed this dynamic.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have something you want to add?
No.
Okay.
Just listening. You're doing great.
So my kids treat me better by his example. So the way I want to share that is that in the previous examples, if there's internal conflict within you and your spouse is being disrespectful, whether you're the disrespectful spouse or your spouse is the disrespectful spouse, if you're disrespectful to the other parent, the children reflect that. And what happens is they end up just being much more miserable in their own lives. So the more respectful that we have been towards each other, I have seen that the children are respectful to that parent. Right? Have you noticed a shift in all of them? My kids, my friends once, I don't know, about a year ago, said to me, "Oh my goodness, your kids are so pleasant. Like, your daughter is nice. Like, I want to hang out with her. She's cool. Like, she's just fun." And they're going, "Wasn't it only like 6 months ago or a year ago that they were like so mean to you?" And I'm like, "Yep." I'm like, "So what changed?" I went, "Paul." And they're going, "He did it?" And I'm like, "No, it's just him being a part of the family." The influence that he has had on our home has absolutely created the dynamic, and the shifts that have occurred in their family life have created this dynamic. And so, like, creating these shifts, I can't stress enough, it's the parental relationship. And so I cannot control their father's behavior towards me, but I can influence them with my current relationship and how they learn how to treat one another. Because I'm about to sneeze, and it's gone. So my children have also started learning how to treat each other, because it's not just about who you're married to, it's about learning how to interact with other people, period. And being in a family, you're learning how to interact with one another. But if you are not interacting with your spouse in a healthy manner, your kids don't know how to interact with other people. They don't know how to interact with their peers, with their teachers, with younger children. They end up kind of, bullying or just totally plowing over other people, because they just don't know how to treat them. They don't know how to treat themselves. Right. They don't know what they deserve.
There's no respect for boundaries there. So
right.
If they think that they could do anything, they will do it.
Right. And sitting down and just teaching them doesn't work. We've tried. Sitting down and just teaching them boundaries just doesn't work. Sitting down and teaching them what they deserve and how to treat others, it just doesn't work. But showing them works.
And even at school, like, for the youngest one, that was probably okay with the teacher, but there was definitely some issues where, like, as an example, like the one that was teaching speech.
Oh yeah.
Alex would just go in and
he would call her horrible names of swear words that I didn't know he even had heard before in his life. And, like, words that just blew me away. That, what would you be, like 4 at that time, 4 or 5?
So it didn't stop at just Melissa. It carried on to his teachers.
He would go into the room and he would throw things and scream and call her filthy, horrible words that a 4 or 5 year old, because I think it was pre-K, that he started that, and it carried over. It got a whole lot better in that kindergarten. But yeah, it was really, really toxic in the way that he was treating his teachers. And the girls at school were the ones he was hitting. He wasn't hitting the boys. He was hitting the girls. and he was calling them the B word, and he was using all this horrible language that I have an idea where he heard it, but in the long run, it was just a very toxic pattern that he was carrying over into his peers. And I kept thinking, he is going to end up not only being the bully, but if this continues on, he's going to end up being in juvenile hall, or he's going to be in jail. Like, he's going to become the perpetrator. We need to stop these patterns right now. And at that age, it was almost impossible to change those patterns.
Yeah. And once again, it was done through mostly example and offering him the attention and the love that he was lacking, and letting him know that he had value.
Right, because it wasn't about the love I felt from him. It was about the unconditional love I was offering him. And there was many times in which he would push away because he was hurting. And what he needed was that stability, knowing that no matter what, that he was loved, but in such a way that his feelings and his emotions had a healthier outlet, that he could learn how to release those emotions. And you don't teach a child how to have an emotional reaction, because it's that automatic thought process and that automatic emotional response that is based upon his perception of the world, his understanding of his past, his emotional understanding of his past, and the way that he has seen other people treat other people. And so if he's just seen conflict, and
that's his normal reaction.
Yeah, and then that's how he carries it over, and it really was hurting him in the long run, as to how to really, behave around other people.
I remember. It was toxic. I remember probably about 6 months, maybe a little longer ago, but it wasn't. It was kind of a silly situation where Alex, he had a friend over at the same age, and she saw him starting to throw a temper tantrum, and she just started to laugh. Like, what is he doing? And then it just registered in his mind, like, my peer is laughing at me because I'm just reacting.
Because he was a little too old.
So silly.
Yeah.
And so
he stopped.
That was actually quite interesting to me.
I don't think I've seen him have a temper tantrum since then.
Yeah.
I think that's the last one he's had.
Hasn't been.
Was that Amy down the street?
No, that was the neighbor.
Oh, okay.
And
that's funny.
Yeah, she just started laughing like,
why are you throwing a fit?
Are you serious? Like, this is just silly.
But he did. He stopped right away, and he just kind of started using his words. And it was really interesting because for the longest time, I've always just told him, please use your words. What is happening? Why are you acting like this? Why are you upset? And it just didn't happen. And so learning how to focus on our relationship to influence the children, there was so much resistance because they wanted to be the center of attention. And so their behavior got a little bit worse. But there is also, like I said, there's some other circumstances, but they really wanted to be the center of attention. And when we really taught them how a family looks, how a family behaves, how a family treats one another, and it's a safe space, and that family is a safe space, and marriage is a very healthy, safe space. Like, they have never seen me and Paul fight. And we haven't actually ever fought. We've disagreed. We've argued. But it's not even, I don't even know if I would say we've argued. We've disagreed and we've had hurt feelings. But my understanding of arguing or fighting is yelling and a lot of upset, angry feelings. And we haven't done that yet. But we have disagreed and we have had some conflict. But we've never done that in front of the children. Ever. We've never had upset feelings and had the children see that. Not once. And so that's,
you don't remember when you hit me over the head with the baseball bat?
Did that happen?
Where do you think I got this lump?
Oh, did that really happen?
No.
Okay. So no, I actually asked my kids once and I said, have you ever seen me and Paul fight? And they're like, no. And I'm like, what does that tell you? And they're like, that it's possible to be married and to not argue. I'm like, yeah, isn't that pretty cool? And they're like, maybe. So they're like kind of starting to open up that possibility. And I'm like, that doesn't mean that you have to grow up and get married and have a family yourself, but it at least gives you some hope, right? It gives you that understanding that you can create this yourself, that you can do this, because for the longest time, you know, their understanding was so misconstrued that marriage was like the culprit, the enemy, that nobody wants to get married because it's just going to bring so much hostility into the family. And so I love that we have been able to create that. And like the only reason why we're kind of giving you like the full picture is just tell you seriously, our history and all the sabotages and all of the memories and the emotional attachments to our perception of other people and relationships and family have been toxic ourselves. And so learning how to totally recreate this, it's been like, let's throw our full old understanding into like the center and like blow it up with an atom bomb and just start from scratch. Like literally start from scratch to be able to totally create something different. And it has taken a lot of effort. It has taken a conscious decision, but it's actually been so rewarding. It doesn't feel like work. It just is consciousness, learning how to actually be more conscious and not reactionary. Because we're not reactionary with each other. That's something that we do, that if we have an emotion where we feel a little bad about something, instead of reacting and blaming, we immediately stop and it's like, okay, what did he really mean? Or what did she really mean by that? And then we'll ask each other, you know, what do you mean by that? And then to really communicate about it, and then learn how to really work through it. And tomorrow we're going to talk about how to do the energy work in conflict to help you to resolve conflict a lot quicker, and how to remove those barriers and those walls and get back to that true connection in your relationship. And it's been so beneficial. And I have to say that I've learned from a lot of people who have, like, if you're talking to somebody who's teaching you how to lose weight and how to get fit, but yet they've always been thin and they've always been fit, you just kind of look at them and go, oh, really? Have you ever struggled? Have you ever had emotional eating? Have you ever really just kind of felt bad about yourself? Have you ever struggled with your weight? Have you ever yo-yoed? You know, have you ever done that? And they're like, oh, no, because this is the way that you need to live your life, and it'll always create the better results. Would you like to come be a part of the video, my dear? Okay. Yes. So what I did learn, though, is that by learning from somebody who's been there, somebody who's experienced it, they've seen the worst. And I love that. Like, I started choosing mentors that if I wanted a mentor to teach me how to have a relationship, I picked somebody who's been divorced, as opposed to picking somebody who's always had a perfect marriage, because I realized they've never struggled. And I love that, saying, okay, you've struggled. You've been in the worst, and you're in a great space right now. How did you do that? How did you pick yourself out of this and create this turnaround in your own life? And that's what we like to offer. And that's why we're kind of sharing this with you, is that we recognize you may never been divorced. And we may be offering you some information that you're like, I'm not sure how to put that into my own life. But that we would just want to share with you once again to really focus on this relationship. We were talking to somebody recently about their own personal development and how to really move forward in her life a little bit faster. And she mentioned that she wasn't sure she was ready for these videos. And I thought, you know, this is such a great component to making it easier and faster to move forward in your life, because everybody in your environment is going to either counteract your personal development, or they're going to assist your personal development. So what I mean by that is that if you choose to make some healthy changes, if you choose to create better patterns, if you choose to have a better marriage, and you're doing it alone, you're going to have resistance from the kids and your spouse. But if you and your spouse choose to make these changes, and you are and you're saying, hey, I'm unhealthy, I'm miserable, I'm depressed, I'm sick, I need some serious help in my life, and you say, honey, let's work on us. Let's work on the family. Let's all work together to heal ourselves, to heal our relationships with each other, because your own personal healing is just as important as your relationships. Because if you are trying to heal separate, you're going to feel that sabotage and that resistance in the family life. If you're healing with your family and not just separate individually, but if you're healing with your family and your spouse and your children are also healing once all together, as in a manner that, because, okay, if you go and you're getting better and your husband's getting better and your kids are getting better and everybody has a different expectation for what that's going to look like, and you expect that he's going to do something different, then he doesn't do it. You like blow up again, and then you give up and you're like, that's it, I'm done. Like, I'm not going to keep trying. But if you're doing this in such a way that you are really focusing on the family and you're focusing on your marriage and how you can influence your children and make your children's life better, all of a sudden you're going to be like, oh my goodness, my own healing journey is actually moving along faster because I'm healing those that are around me as well. We're all healing together in the way that we talk to each other. So the way that I talk to Paul and the way that he talks to me influences my children. And it helps them to feel safe. It helps them to love themselves. It helps them to treat others better. And it helps them to create a whole different future for themselves. Because if they're focusing on all the drama here, their schoolwork is falling apart. If they're focusing on any other sort of conflict, they're going to lash out at school at one of the other children. They're going to lash out at themselves, take it out on themselves somehow. And that is such a toxic way, but it is the way that our children respond. And if that's not what you want for your kids, you've got to work on the marriage, on the relationship. I want to kind of throw in just one or two other things in our notes. Did you have something to add to me?
No, not right now.
Okay. So one thing I wanted to kind of show is something that my daughter did. I've got to share this with you because of how we went to this amazing coaching experience in Utah called Limitless and Awaken. Two separate ones with Chris Brown and Gerald Rogers, and I really love them as leaders and coaches and mentors, and so we did a love fight. And it's not arguing, it is throwing affirmations at the other person. So what I mean is I can go into the kids' bedroom at night and say, you are amazing! And they come back like, you're hilarious. And I'm like, well, you are full of potential and you have unlimited resources. And then they come back with something like, you're an amazing mom. And I'm like, you're special, you're bright, and God loves you. And so what happens is they start fighting back and forth like that. Like I heard my son yell across the hall to my daughter because I was doing love fights with him that night, and he hollered to my daughter's room and he goes, you're an amazing artist and you're gonna be famous. And she like turned back and she's like, well, you're the nicest brother that God could have ever given me. And oh my goodness, like when we just state it, like, you are so full of potential and I love you so much and you bring light into this world, right? And the kids are like, okay. But if I say, you bring light into this world and I think you are the most amazing person and you are going to grow up to yeah, I'm making this too long. They're shorter. But anyhow, you bring light into this world and you make the world a better place. That's usually what I yell. But if you say it in a yell like this, like they stop doing what they're doing, they put down their electronics, and they join in because it like totally takes them off guard. And I love fights. It has been so influential, and it has helped them to interact in a very positive, optimistic way with affirmations, teaching each other how to. So when we work with affirmations, we're usually saying them to ourselves. However, in this manner, we're using affirmations to teach them to treat each other better. And that's what we want. We don't want kids fighting all the time. We don't want them constantly resisting everything that we try to do to make their lives better. We want them to be appreciative. We want them to be grateful. We want them to be loving. We want them to be stable. We want them to be leaders. We want them to be able to focus on their studies at school. Like we have so many hopes and dreams for our children, but what are we really doing to help them to create that? And all of these steps that we have been teaching you today really have been helping our children to create that. And so if you've been watching our videos for the last few days, the patterns that we've been teaching you, Monday through Wednesday, have been creating a different dynamic in our home. And it's been helping us to be able to create some stability, to be able to teach them how to love themselves and how to love others. And in doing so, it has turned them into a much more stable individual. And that's what we're doing. These kids are not our possessions. They're not our mini me that we're molding. They are people. And sometimes we have to step back and really start to respect their individuality and to learn that we are influencing them, that we're teaching them, and we are helping them to grow up and become well-rounded individuals who are members of society, who can support themselves, who can bring something into this world. There was something that popped into my mind, and it was, I don't think it was Einstein, but it was one of those great inventors where he got kicked out of school. And his mom, Edison, right? And instead of his mom telling him he got kicked out of school because he was not smart enough, his mom told him that the school said that he was too smart and that he needed to study at home because they couldn't offer him what he needed. And he became an amazing inventor. And I thought that that's so beautiful. The way that we talk to our children, the way that we treat them has so much to do with how they are going to behave, how they're going to see themselves, and who they're going to turn into. And I just want you to realize that the words that you say to your children influence them. If you criticize them and you criticize your spouse, it's going to hurt them. And if you criticize their parent, if you're not married to them, it's going to hurt your children. And if we don't want our children to suffer, we need to learn how to love others. And we need to be more respectful with our words about other people, whether we like the other person or not. Learning how to really be respectful towards other people, it reflects in our children's behavior. And so the last thing I just wanted to say is that my daughter, and I'm taking over this whole conversation.
It's okay.
My daughter coached my dad, and my dad had said something, and my daughter looked at him, and she had gone with us to these seminars in Utah this last summer, and so she's also gotten a little bit more hands-on experience in addition to, and it was just coaching. It was just a lot of positive internal change, and so he had said something, and she came up to him and she took him by the face like this, and she said, "Grandpa." And she goes, you need to shift your perspective, and you need to focus on your internal self, and you need to say this. And it was just really cool how it wasn't a control thing. And I feel like by saying you need to say this felt a little more controlling, and that's not what we're getting at here. But helping him to shift his own perspective of everybody else and what was happening to help him to be able to experience that very moment a little bit differently, to help him to be maybe a little bit less frustrated with what was happening. And it was so cool to hear that she was carrying this over into other relationships, and to help other relationships to also heal strictly by changing the way that you treat yourself, focusing on that self-love and that love between you and Heavenly Father, focusing on healing your relationships because of how much influences this younger generation and how we are raising them to be adults. And that it's not about hurting other people through your children, because it hurts the children. And and that is not a price that any of us are willing to bear. And I have some like serious reflection on my glasses with with that. Yes, dear.
You talking about me?
Yes. And so anyhow, would you like to add a little bit here, honey?
Not
Are
really.
you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm doing good.
Okay. Yes, dear.
How long should I put the beans in the microwave?
I don't know. Let me finish this, like 30 seconds or less. Okay.
Can you send me a timer?
So if you have any questions, and if you would like to work with us, please reach out. But, and we have so much to offer. I just want to be very respectful to the other parties that are involved so that I'm not offering too many details here. But I just want to share with you how happy I am with how our family has shifted, how our family has changed, and how these dynamics have healed by seriously focusing on healing ourselves and healing our marriage. And that when we're really trying to focus on the kids first, that we're constantly going to be frustrated and we're going to struggle with being able to get the results that we're looking for. All right. So thank you. And tomorrow we are so excited to share with you all of the different energetic healing steps. And this is going to be that if you don't know how to do energy work, this might be a fantastic opportunity for you to learn. If there's some stuff that's over your head, please reach out and we would love to teach you one-on-one. Or if you would like to join some of our students, we really do make this affordable. This is not a ploy or an advertising opportunity. We really just want to teach and share. And that we really do have a very humble, very modest family that we are in this for the reasons in which we really want to bless lives and we want to help others. And we really want to spread love because we recognize that your home is like a temple. And the more that your home is a safe space for your family, the more that you're going to see your children thrive. And you are going to be filled with so much more health, and wealth is going to flow. And we have seen a whole lot of changes in our relationships externally. And we have seen a whole lot of shifts just occurring because we have really been working at it in the right manners and putting up boundaries in appropriate ways. Because when you're really healing and you're setting these healthy boundaries because of that resistance that is going to go on around you, and you're able to also, once again, see the results that you're seeking. So I hope that I wasn't too vague today, and I hope that I was able to give enough. Like I said, I was trying to be very respectful to the other parties involved in case any of them happen to watch this video, so that this is a very healing and a very healthy and a very safe space that we want to create for our family, in which we don't wish to talk ill of anyone else. So, and that has also been a new pattern that has started internally. Because something that we do teach is that you don't take a rotten fruit and pretend that it's healthy. You don't fake it till you make it. You have to really internally change and shift that belief system and really change those internal thought dynamics so that externally your words just flow naturally in a very loving mindset, which is very healing to those around you. So, oh, are you on camera? Anyhow, would you like to add anything? Okay, so we're going to sign off. Have a beautiful day.
Goodbye.